Welcome back to Cultivated Live from Planet 13 in Las Vegas. I'm Jay. She is Krista. You are Kenny.
I am Kenny.
We're going to talk about ID Scan. Tell us about ID Scan first, and then we'll dive into sort of how it's used in the cannabis industry and all that jazz.
Okay, great. ID Scan is a premier digital age ID verification tool. So basically using technology to confirm that a government-issued ID is legitimate, and obviously that serves a strong purpose in the age-restricted verticals as well.
Yes, it does. I'm from Massachusetts. And
so you know all about CCC.
Checking into dispensaries in Massachusetts is like
checking into dispensaries in Nevada. They're the only two that have the that really high level of security out of the states.
Is that real? Is that right?
That's 100% true.
Wow. It seems more burdensome in Massachusetts. Not your thing, but actually the regulations and how you get into a dispensary.
Right. Well, typically a state that has very, let's call them robust age and ID verification standards are also going to have standards of security and legalities and all the other niches also, which if you add them all together, it can get,
gets dense very quickly.
Oh, so there's like queue issues?
No, I don't mean. I think she just means like it's complicated for a retailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen queues when I go by in Natick, Massachusetts, but talk about the impetus to do this. Like, what were you doing before? What was the application of the technology before?
Yeah, thank you. I was selling ID scan technology. I'm from Las Vegas, so I was selling into the gaming vertical. We're also the vendor of choice for pretty much all of the gaming technology companies, Konami, Every, Scientific Games, Aristocrat, et cetera, et cetera. I had sold into Planet 13, Shango, Reef, Hardin, the warehouse style dispensaries in Las Vegas, if you will. And Nevada, coined as Sin City, I think there's a misconception that it's willy-nilly. That's absolutely the opposite. What it means is if you're not hurting anyone but yourself, you're probably going to be allowed to do it, but we're going to regulate and tax the heck out of it.
Yes.
So the governor at the time said, I do not want an underage tourist coming to Las Vegas and purchasing at a licensed dispensary. How do I make sure that doesn't happen? And all of these dispensaries like Planet 13 and others said, well, you need to use ID scan. That turned into us being the only government-approved vendor in the space, which also led to point-of-sale integrations, custom developments, things like that. And organically, we've really found our niche in this vertical.
It's a good vertical.
I love it.
For this type of technology, yeah.
I love it for, aside from compliance and the fact that it's, an age-restricted vertical, I feel passionate about it, from, medical benefits, things like that, gateways to all the plant-based medicines. Yeah. So yeah, I've really found my purpose for sure.
Yeah. Krista, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because it is something that is fairly unique to cannabis, is that before the customer comes in and buys the thing that they're there to buy, you actually know they're there. And I know that opens up complications in maybe the operation. It's not like buying something normally, but also you have the great advantage of actually sometimes knowing that they've been there before, maybe even attached to actual purchasing habits. Like, what is opportunities or challenges that offer for a retail operator especially?
Well, you actually can start an interaction with a customer before they ever get onto the sales floor. And often in the ID process, or like as somebody is going through that check-in, it offers this opportunity to have a very casual conversation with the customer that is like low barrier to entry while we're facilitating like logistical regulated requirements. And it's in that moment how quick and smooth that process is will actually set the transaction pace as well. So if it feels clunky there, the customer anticipates clunkiness, even if there isn't, and the perception is that there is. So it's actually really important. I don't think we spend enough time focused on what the experience is like in the age gate area to create and reduce the amount of clunkiness there. User experience is efficient, and that you can actually start to have conversations with the customer about things outside of like ID checking, like loyalty programs, what's going on in store, are there new products, early before the customer even gets on the sales floor.
And how do you, when you're talking to clients, Like how are they thinking about it? Like obviously they're thinking about it from a compliance perspective, but are there clients that are actually using this moment in time in interesting
100%.
ways?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is we're still in a relatively brand new vertical, so things are, as you know, changing
Dynamic.
rapidly. For example, when I first came to the space, the reason that we've had the success we've had is that everyone is using digital ID scanning typically from the point of sale vendor. And for the most part, people thought that was that an ID scan equals an ID validation, and it couldn't be further from the truth. So there was constant populating of fake IDs. So from there, the industry eventually learned when the sheriff comes in, and they all populate as real. Okay, the industry got trained on the idea that the digital scanning is a good thing, and we were able to come in behind and go, we can actually verify that. There's PII regulations that are applied. You mentioned Massachusetts. You have the requirement to validate that ID, but you have to dump it.
Right.
And then, so we had to do custom developments from there. And then finally, we get to where we are now, which is like, let's take that PII and integrate it. The fact is about 2 to 5% of the customers at retail brick and mortar are failing our authentication, which means we are serving minors at a fairly alarming rate. Mm-hmm. And that is also even less secure in the online ordering for BOPUS and delivery. So what the retailers want is to have all these tools integrated. We want to validate that ID, but we also want to know, oh, Jay, you're not here to shop. You're actually here to pick up your order that you have already called in, to expedite those lines, things like that. So the fact is we are a visitor management database, and that leads us to so many integration opportunities. And that's kind of where we're at this point, is it's like we're well beyond at this point knowing that you need a good agent ID verification tool. But in the process of doing that, how can we make the business more efficient?
Yeah. And that is where a lot of retailers are. To me, it's like everybody coming at it from the same perspective. Like we're seeing retailers that are much more seasoned than they were day one,
100%,
and know that this is important to them.
And that's not necessarily an easy thing to do, because you mentioned Massachusetts, New Jersey, Illinois. You have these digital scanning requirements to age and ID verify, but you also have personal information data dump regulations. That's sort of counterintuitive, right, for a visitor management base, but there's still the need from the retailer. Okay, I'm not allowed to know that Jay Rosenthal is the next person in line, right, but I still need him to populate into the queue as, let's say, customer number 56.
Right.
Those are brand new ideas, because this is a brand new vertical, right, sort of building their policies as they go.
And each individual dispensary has their own SOPs, how they want it to run. Like here is different than the dispensaries down the street about how you get into how you check in, then how you get into the queue, and then how you get to the register and how you buy your stuff. Like everybody's a little bit different. That's
yep. And all the time along the line, you've got that consumer, whether you're able to legally know who that is or not. You need these different integration tools, because that's that customer that applies to inventory, it applies to different workflows, all these things.
I hadn't thought of that, actually. I hadn't thought of all those. I hadn't thought of like the data dump.
How about anti-looping? How about the fact that you're not supposed to
right,
be in certain places more than once a day?
Right.
That's a Veriscan tool that says, oh, or there is a fake ID, but okay, well I didn't get in at this MSO location. I'll go across town,
right,
and try that one. No, sorry, you've already.
What does can I just ask a technology question? Like, what does the verification actually do? Does it go to a database that matches up name, or is it about how the thing looks and feels? Like, what is the?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because there's lots of different ways to validate, and again, there's a lot of misconception that some type of digital scan equals validation. That's absolutely not true. And it can be very expensive to scan an ID and ping some type of third-party source that says, well, Kenny Peddicord exists, but 8290 Willowbreak doesn't exist. Or you could actually ping the DMV directly and say, yes, Kenny Peddicord owns a Nevada ID number.
Right.
But that can get expensive because it's a third-party API call, right? So the reason that we've had so much success is we do it in an all-you-can-eat platter. We have software that has a very good 2D barcode library. So there's about 15,000 algorithms. This Kansas ID doesn't start with 00 or 01. Kansas only manufactures in those two sequences. Kansas didn't manufacture this license. That'll catch about half of the fraudulent IDs in circulation, because the fact is the fraudulent market is getting very, very sophisticated. You can get 3 for $200 from China that are using the same manufacturing equipment as our DMVs are.
Right.
So the barcode's going to be formatted correctly. What you can do on top of that is layer a hologram and watermark library. Now you're at a really high level if you have a good UV hologram IR watermark library. This California Bear, it's not quite exactly where it's like 1 millimeter to the right. California didn't manufacture this license.
They didn't get it wrong. Right.
Yeah. Or I mean, it's the fact is it's much more difficult to fraudulently replicate a hologram and watermark library. And the fact is, those licenses are being used for things other than purchasing a quarter ounce of flour.
Right. They're not going in to buy.
No, they're test driving a Tesla gone in 60 seconds type stuff. Right. Really high end crime.
Right.
We've just unlocked an entire different thought process.
Well, right, but also I actually didn't know how it was. But when we made fake IDs, it was like a picture in a dorm room that you basically print out and like find the right font in Apple and like
unpeel the laminate while it was still warm and take an eraser and some whiteout. Yeah, they're gone are those days.
No, I know, and it becomes more difficult obviously when it's actually verified. It's not just scanning it to get it up on the screen; it's scanning it to actually ping something else to make sure it's real. And
it's so important because the fact is we don't have the cultural clout that say alcohol does, right? So not that it's okay for a teenager to go into a bar, but the fact is we know it happens on greater college campus areas all over. We're under quite a bit more scrutiny than that, so it's very important that we don't give legitimate reason to be criticized, because I think it's more than just compliance and legality. We're in the plant-based medicine vertical for a reason, and I grew up doing the war on drugs, so I like to joke that, yes, marijuana is a gateway drug, just not in the way that was advertised. This is a gateway to help understand the medical benefits of all the plant-based medicines. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that we don't offer up legitimate scrutiny that would retard the process of helping, society as a whole.
Well, Kenny, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think I learned a lot, actually. We've been doing this for 3 days, and I'm not sure I learned as much as this conversation. Don't tell anybody that, because we've had a lot. But I really appreciate you taking time and being generous with your time today, because you were here super on time, which I super appreciate. I tell my kids if they're on time, they're late. If they're early, they're on time. So when people actually practice that, I really appreciate it. So thanks for making time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
He's Kenny Peddicord from ID Scan. I'm Jay Rosenthal. She is Krista Raymer. I'm getting all of them confused. This is Cultivated live from Planet 13 in Las Vegas. We'll be right back with Cal McDonald from Solink. We'll be right back.